What is up, my fellow Path of Exile 2 enjoyers? Over the last few days, I have been leveling a lot on SSFHC as I have been dying an amount that I'm not comfortable mentioning. And through this, I've learned to level Mercenary with crossbows, and I find that it's been really effective. The build did get nerfed prior to me learning to level with it, so it is a little bit weaker. It primarily uses gas shot and flash grenade, and I still think that even after the nerf, it allows me to level very quickly. I managed to get through normal in about 5 hours without any kind of crazy gear or anything like that. For the most part, this will be a leveling guide for the Mercenary. In my case in particular, I needed something to level to 41 to play my Corrupting Cry build. And this was the way that I chose to do so. But most likely you can also level a warrior or a ranger with it. At the same time, if you can anoint some crucial nodes from the skill tree on your amulet if you are leveling it out and you really want to level this way and kind of make it work. But I don't think that it would be nearly as strong. Without further ado, let's get into the skill gems. When you start on the beach, you're going to be using fragmentation rounds. You will then get to town and immediately going to switch to explosive grenade with your first skill gem. If you have supports available, scatter shot and magnified effect are incredibly effective. For your single target, you can support your auto attacks with armor piercing rounds that you then link with brutality and martial tempo. If you have the possibility, try to get a Rampart Raptor crossbow. This item is absolutely incredible all the way until gas grenade, and all you gotta do is get or keep the fragmentation rounds, link brutality and martial tempo, so essentially replace the armor piercing rounds, and then you're just popping off. Crossbow is absolutely insane. It destroys everything. You're probably gonna find yourself using the explosive grenades very rarely. And if you don't have the crossbow, it's going to take a little bit of time to get used to the explosive grenades, but the one-shotting is actually amazing. At level 6, we're going to be changing things up, and this is really where the power picks up. We're going to be using flash grenade, and we will be taking the gems from explosive grenade, scatter shot, and magnified effect, putting it into the flash grenade, and this at this point, all the way until wherever you want to level, will be your primary ability really when it comes to AoE clear. Flash grenade is just absolutely overpowered, and it's been like this for a long time, judging from old Ziggy D videos, so I don't think it's going to be stopping anytime soon. You can keep using the armor piercing rounds or the Rampart Raptor, and then you're probably going to find yourself using the explosive grenades a lot less. Try and pull mobs together and utilize your cooldown on the flash grenade as efficiently as you possibly can, as it is pretty long early on, but that will very quickly change because of the passive points that you're going to be picking up. And for the final gem switcheroo at level 14, we will continue to use a flash grenade. If you have a 4-link available, all you got to do is throw in fire infusion. Otherwise, you might want to be using fire infusion instead of magnified effect, because we do have our gas grenade now, and gas grenade does require ignition. And I think this is the point where a lot of people tend to slow down, because for gas grenade to work, you have to ignite something. It doesn't necessarily have to be your ignite. It doesn't have to be a mob. It just has to be a mob affected by an ignite. It can be a corpse, or it can be some form of burning ground that the boss put on the ground or something like that. So if we don't have any of those things available to us immediately, you want a little bit of fire damage on your flash grenade, and this way you can use the gas grenade, follow up with the flash grenade, and then that ignition is always going to be there. You can do that in whatever order you want, really. For the gas grenade, we're using the primal armament and fire penetration, or if you find the mana to be very annoying, you can use inspiration. I used it early on, and then later on, when mana was a little bit more manageable, I found myself switching over to the fire pen. And really, when it comes to the fire pen, mobs tend to only really start to get resistances later on anyway, so that's just something that you're gonna have to experiment with for yourself. If your flash grenade is unable to trigger the ignite because the mob has too much HP, this tends to happen on bosses depending on the sort of weapon that you're using at the time. We are using Flame Glow with the Fortress and Arcane Tempo supports. So with this, we can always ignite regardless of the amount of damage that we're dealing. And this will be our final gem that we will be using for damage. For our spirit gems, you might want to use Wind Dancer with Clarity and Vitality. The only way that you're going to be able to do this is either doing the quests along the way. So only really you're going to be able to get that set up in Act 3. But you can get Spirit on your chest piece, and that way you're going to be able to use it early on, even in Act 1, if you do have access to something like that. As with any attack damage build, the weapons are going to be incredibly important. I didn't always upgrade my weapons at all, but whenever you do have a weaker weapon, you might be looking forward to some breakpoints. At level 10, we can use a sturdy crossbow. This is a very strong item. I highly recommend that you use it. At level 16, we have access to a varnished crossbow. This is optional, but I ended up using one. It's not a very good base, but it did last me all the way until level 33. But the damage did end up dropping off. Instead, I highly recommend at level 26, you upgrade to an alloy crossbow. This one is pretty good. But level 33 is really where you get the big banger, the Bombard crossbow. This crossbow has an implicit that allows you to have an extra grenade projectile. And this is really the thing that's going to make the build stick well together. It tremendously increases your single target. It mechanically improves the build to the point where instead of shooting sideways the whole time, you're getting a nice clean line of gas grenades, and then you can continue to upgrade those crossbows all the way until wherever you want to level maps, however you feel. Something incredibly important when it comes to your weapons, especially early on, I highly recommend that you put sockets in your crossbows. You can put 2 sockets every single time, and what I would do is use Desert Runes. This allows you to add 7 to 11 fire damage to your weapon. This helps you with popping the gas grenades with your flashbangs, but also this is just a really high number. This is a lot of damage early on, and it continues to be a lot all the way until level 33, where potentially you might want to be looking at better setups with some of the physical damage, and at that point you would be using an Iron Rune if you have a sufficient amount of increased flat physical damage on your crossbow. When it comes to the skill tree, you want to path through the initial projectile nodes, get Remorseless, then go over to Volatile Catalyst, and we're traveling all the way down to cluster bombs as soon as possible. This will be a little bit annoying at first, but trust me, it will work out nicely eventually. And then we get Grenadier at level 15, which is going to be a giant power spike because of your flash grenade. At that point, the build is pretty much done. You don't have to do a whole lot more, but I would recommend that you either travel to Colossal Weapon, Curved Weapon, and Overwhelm. These are the increased damage with two-handed weapon nodes. You can also travel over to Volatile Grenades. This is a super powerful thing if you are annoyed with the delay on your grenades. And if you've got both of these picked up, or if you want, you can get more AoE with the node Authority all the way over here. So we travel across, travel through the area of effect nodes, and pick these ones up. After that point, the scaling is static, right? It's always the same thing. Two-handed nodes, projectiles, damage with crossbows, these sort of things. Global damage will be very effective for you. Conversions don't really work the same way in PoE 2 as they do in PoE 1, so you don't really want to be focusing on physical damage a lot of the times. You do want to be getting mostly elemental. Editor note, I forgot about area damage. You can also use that for both your flash grenade and the gas grenade. And with that, thanks for watching, guys. Hope that you found this useful. Good luck on your leveling adventures. If you enjoyed this sort of content, make sure to subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Maybe it's going to be some form of caster leveling. But quite frankly, that's a much bigger struggle than what's happening with the attack-based builds.